call to order the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly for August 6, 2013. Madam Clerk, would you please do the roll call?
Assemblymember Trainee. Assemblymember Trainee is participating telephonically. Assemblymember Johnston. Assemblymember Honeman.
Here.
Assemblymember Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Chair Hall.
Here.
Vice Chair Trombley. Here. Assemblymember Flynn.
Present.
Assemblymember Starr.
Here.
Assemblymember Steele.
Here.
Assemblymember Dembowski.
Present.
Assemblymember Birch.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Trombley. We now have before us item 4A, minutes for the regular meeting of May 7th, 2013. Take a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Any changes or amendments that need to be made? There is no objection. The minutes will stand approved as presented. Are you okay with that, Mr. Trainee? Mr. Trainee?
What was that, sir? I didn't hear you.
You okay with the minutes as they're written?
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. Do we have anyone with the mayor's report this evening? I know the mayor is at the opening of a facility this evening, Covenant House, I believe.
Yes, sir. He's requested that when he does join us, if he could say a few remarks.
We will certainly honor that request. With that, we will move into our assembly reports, beginning with the assembly chair. And I want to start by thanking Amanda. She went down to Texas last week and represented us at the NACO meeting. And from what she shared with me, they're quite excited about coming to Alaska next year.
Yes, through the chair, the NACO is the National Association of Counties. It was an opportunity to learn innovative county programs and issues impacting counties across the country, along with networking with colleagues and viewing products and services from participating companies and exhibitors. The Western Interstate region will be hosting a conference here in Anchorage, Alaska in May of 2014, and they'll be focusing on issues critical to the western half of the United States. So, thank you.
Okay. With that, the other part of my chair's report is actually going to be done by Beth Nordland, the Anchorage Community Park Foundation. Beth?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Nordland, Executive Director of the Anchorage Park Foundation. You've been hearing a lot from us this summer with our 36 park projects, hopefully some in every district. It has been a busy summer and a very productive summer. The weather has been very cooperative, although you might hear differently this evening from the Youth Employment and Park teens who were out there working hard in the hot sun. This summer, so the Youth Employment and Parks program, we hire about 30 people, about 24 teens this year between the ages of 16 to 19. They are from, if you will take a look at your handout this evening, we like to put this map together. We call it We Reflect Anchorage. It shows that we have teens from 10 different high schools, that our teens speak 6 different languages in the home. 26% speak a language other than English in their home. It talks about the different ethnicities that we have and the male to female ratio, 48% female. Let's see. I'm going to say that I'm going to read the origin, if you don't mind, the ethnic origin. We have 26% American Indian or Alaska Native, 13% Asian, 17% African American, 9% Pacific Islander, 22% Hispanic or Latino, and then 40% white or Caucasian. So that's exciting for us. There's a little bit about their family backgrounds, the different ages, and then some questions that they answered about how they intend to spend their earnings. And then there's a little bit, they did a competition about volunteering in parks, but also throughout the community this summer. So you might, I know we'll get follow-up questions. You might ask them about their volunteer opportunities that they took advantage of. The map shows you the blue are the projects, the blue dots are the projects, and the red dots are just where the teens live, close to where they live. The projects this summer were at Valley of the Moon. They worked along the watershed. They planted trees and revegetated that riparian area. On the coastal trail, they did some vegetation management and got exposed to what the coastal trail 7 miles of repaving is all about. So that was an exciting project for them. They went to Girdwood this summer and did some work on the Beaver Pond Trail. And they got to build some bridges and some unique features that they'll talk about. They did work in Far North Bicentennial Park. They did some landscaping at William B. Lyons Park, which is in Mountain View, right next to the Boys and Girls Club. So hopefully you will get to see some of that work in the future. And then they just spent the last 2 weeks at the Campbell Creek Estuary, where they were building a trail. We work very closely at the Anchorage Park Foundation with the Great Land Trust to make sure that that project met the expectations of the community and the master planning process. So I think this year all the projects were scoped very well with the city. I want to thank Anchorage Parks and Recreation. They scope all the projects and make sure they're appropriate work for the teens, but they focus on trail building, riparian area, and then some of the urban park habitat, and sometimes they get to work on forestry projects. Right now we're in our final week of work, and it's been a mentorship week. They've done some job shadowing. They've worked on their resumes. They've had some financial literacy projects, and they've got to hear from a lot of different community members. So that's a quick 2013 overview. This is our 7th season, our 7th successful season. And I must say, 10 weeks go very quickly for me as I watch Youth Employment in Parks and its success over the summer. So we are talking to you in our final week together. And I'm going to ask them to come up. I'm going to ask the first row to, do you want to do that? All right. Let's have the whole row stand, and then people line up afterwards, and then they'll each tell you what district they live in and what their favorite park project has been. So, Gage?
Hi, I'm Gage Raymond. I'm from District 6, and my favorite project was Campbell Creek Estuary, because we got to start something completely new instead of go right into it in the middle. And I thought that was really cool.
Hi, my name is A. Zong, and my favorite project is in Girdwood, because we had to build a boardwalk, and I'm from District 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, I'm Trevion Thompson. I'm from District 5, and my favorite project was Campbell Creek Estuary because we got to build a trail that was not there before. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Daniel Dyer. I am from District 5, and my favorite project was Girdwood because we got to build a bridge and a stream where there was just a mud puddle. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Brendan Hughes. I live in District 5. My favorite project was the Far North Bicentennial because we got to work on several different trails and we got to build an awesome bridge which will be heavily used.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cheng Zong and I'm from District 5. And my favorite project of this summer was the Campbell Creek Estuary. It was great being exposed to the natural area and seeing the work that we've done, that the Great Land Trust has invested so much money into. And it was just great being exposed to everything, the birds, the sandhill cranes, and we hope that others around the neighborhood will enjoy it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Simon Froelich. I'm from District 3. My favorite project that we did was the combination of Westchester Lagoon and Valley of the Moon Park, because I'm in the area and I use it all the time, and I found that I could really see the improvement that we did, and that was great for me to actually see what I could accomplish.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kessativa Roy, and I live in District 5. My favorite project was at Westchester Lagoon because, unlike the other projects that we did, the work and the progress that we made was much more noticeable. And working around the community, around people that were interested and passionate about the work that we were doing was really inspiring to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adrian Samuels. I'm from District 6, and my favorite project was the William B. Limes Park because we actually had plumbing and there wasn't as many bugs. And we were working by there's a Boys and Girls Club, and we got to all the kids that were outside. They were helping us like plant and stuff, and it was really nice being able to show the kids how we're improving their park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Matson. I'm from District 6. My favorite project over the summer was working out at Far North Bicentennial. It was really cool going out and seeing like nothing, just bare wilderness, and then like putting a brand new trail in and getting to walk the trail a couple times and like feel the reward of putting, that other people will use a lot. So it was really cool.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melina Bell. I'm from District 1. My favorite project was a combination between the Valley of the Moon Park and Westchester Park because it was a very urban area, and we were able to see how what we did affected the people around the area and how we influenced the community. And I pushed myself more than I've ever done before, and I was able to see what I could actually do. So that was cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abby Plunkett. I'm from District 1, and my favorite project wasn't one that was mentioned by Beth Nordland. It was the very first one, Valley Street Park. It was sort of just a crash course on how to do everything, and it just marked the beginning.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nemeche Soya, and I'm from District 3, and my favorite project was the William B. Limes Park because we were able to beautify it, and beautification is one of my favorite aspects of this job.
Thank you.
I'm Aliaska Melendez. I'm from District 6, and my favorite project was in Girdwood, just being able to hike out into this really beautiful trail and then being able to make it even nicer because we were able to turn this this little mud hole into a creek, and then use down trees to make a bridge and get over that, and make it more accessible to people. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eli Fleener, and my favorite project, actually I couldn't decide between the Beaver Pond Trail or the Campbell Creek Estuary, because the Campbell Creek Estuary, I love the feeling of accomplishment that we had after we moved around 200 tons of gravel, and the feeling of accomplishment after working so hard in the hot sun. And I loved the Beaver Pond Trail because it was so just out in the wilderness, and there was vegetation everywhere, and I loved being able to use the natural materials to make a bridge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Savannah Comerford. I'm from District 3. My favorite projects were also Campbell Creek Estuary and Beaver Pond Trail. I really enjoyed Beaver Pond Trail because getting to work with all the natural material, the vegetation out there was so enjoyable because it's somewhat a temperate forest out there in Girdwood, so the vegetation is much more enjoyable to work with, I feel like. And then Campbell Creek Estuary, being able to build something from nothing. This park isn't even opened yet, so being able to be a part of the beginning of something being made was also really good.
Thank you.
So those are all the teens, the crew members and the senior crew members. The crew members are in the red shirts, and the green shirts are returner crew members. We call those senior crew members, and they get to help lead crews. And so next year it'll be a whole different group, but some of these teens will return and have an opportunity to put in some more time in the parks.
Ms. Johnston.
I just want to congratulate all of you. I've seen most of your projects. I have to say I didn't go to the Beaver Pond because it is mucky. So I now will go back and check your work out there and can't wait to see the Campbell Estuary. This program has gotten better and better each year, and I want to congratulate each and every one of you in participating and look forward to your further participation in the parks. Thank you.
Mr. Horniman.
Well, I just had to point out that Mr. Trombley and I shared probably more representation in our district anyway from all of you. How many people are interested in coming back next year to actually maybe be a crew lead or things like that? Awesome. Quite a bit of you. I don't know how many spots you got available, but I'd take them all.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I bumped into the group of you. I think some of you might remember when I went to the Lydia Selcraig Chalet to use a permit in the park, and you guys were just finishing up for the day, and we chit-chatted a little bit, and I really appreciated that. And then more than anything, I have to tell you, Ms. Nordland, is I'm not by any doubt that there's probably good people that have served in the YEP program, but from all accounts, the people in the parks that have been working with you have said this is the best crew that they've seen in cumulative effort. So, you're to be lauded for your work and your effort and your enthusiasm, and I really do appreciate all the work you do to make our parks better for everybody. So thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boy, time flies because it seems like it was just yesterday that young people were out here telling us what a wonderful time they had working in the parks. But I'm a little disappointed because I represent District 4 along with Mr. Train in Midtown, and I don't think anybody did any work there. But that's okay because we had some wonderful things happen with playgrounds in our district, so I'm okay with that. But thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Steele.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank certainly those people in District 3, since that's my neck of the woods, but the Westchester or the Chester Creek Trail and that kind of stuff is a trail that I use all the time, and I wanted to get out and see you guys in action, but I thought, boy, if I go out to Campbell Creek, I'm going to have to push wheelbarrows around full of gravel. So I didn't quite make it out there. But thank you guys, the parks and thanks the Parks Foundation and everybody. And it was a fantastic summer for parks in Anchorage, and you guys are a big part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I too want to express my thank you to each and every one of you on behalf part of the entire body, and tell you that the real treat you've got to look forward to is in about 20 years when you go back and visit those parks and just see the trees that you've planted and everything else. It's a real feeling of accomplishment. So thank you very much. Beth, thank you for doing a great job with the Park Foundation leadership. It's reflected in the community.
Thanks for having us and giving us this attention that we get annually. It's a real treat for us, and I do think it's an opportunity for the teens to get a great exposure to local government, and it's a great opportunity for you folks to actually connect with some of your municipal employees. So thanks so much for your work and your support.
Okay. Mr. Horniman?
Just one last thing. I know I've noted that over at Scenic Park you guys did a fix-up over the summer, and I know they're still looking for playgrounds. So I didn't get to the YEP projects, but I did get to a couple of the summer park fix-ups, and I really appreciate that.
The Scenic Park project will get a playground this summer, and I believe that work has started, but I don't know what the finish date will be.
Right. But anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll now move to committee reports, beginning with Mr. Birch.
No report.
Thank you. Ms. Dembowski.
No report.
Mr. Steele.
No report tonight.
Mr. Starr.
I have no report.
Mr. Flynn. Mr. Trombley.
Well, I'll be the first to bite. Ethics and Elections Committee
was supposed to, well, we will have a committee meeting here in August, but we're waiting on the results from the ethics, or from the ethics board on some changes to the ethics code. And when that comes before us, which I'm assuming is going to be here in the next week or so, what we're going to do is we're going to organize a meeting between Teachers Association, Clerk's Office, the Ethics and Elections Committee, PTA Association, Ethics Board, School Board Rep, someone from the school board will be there as well, and Anchorage School District Administration. That way, when we make those changes to the ethics code, all the players are going to be in the room, and I won't get into too much detail. At the last assembly meeting, I went into more about that. But I do have two questions for Mr. Wheeler. Sort of a passion of mine, some might find it odd, but I enjoy reading Supreme Court rulings. And in one of the Supreme Court rulings that came down was Kuntz versus St. Johns River Water Management District. And in that, and I'll just sort of summarize, Justice Alito, who wrote the majority opinion, one of the things he said was that the basic command that government cannot hold up a particular project in order to fund development projects such as ditches and culverts that should be funded from general revenues. Now, I know that a lot of times as projects go on, the city requires that individual doing that project to make enhancements. And I'm curious, you don't have to answer now, but I'd be interested to see what this ruling does to some of the requirements that we place on builders. And unless you have an answer now, but we can always take that offline, but I wanted to throw that out there to you. And then one other thing I wanted to mention was recently there was a letter sent by, and I'll pull this up as well, several labor unions. One of them was the Teamsters, United Commercial Workers of International, and another union that represents hotel workers and entertainment industry. And they wrote a letter regarding Obamacare. And one of the major concerns that they wrote in that letter was that as Obamacare continues to be implemented, and their major concerns with that is that they're going to have to open up collective bargaining agreements. And my concern is that as we're in labor negotiations now, and as those get signed and agreed to, since there's so many things about Obamacare that nobody really knows, and the concerns that the unions have, are we going to be expecting those, have to reopen those at all? Do we know that yet? And if so, is there going to be a cost associated with that, or just something to prepare this body for as we move forward?
Through the chair, Mr. Trombley, as to your second question regarding Obamacare, I'll have to check with the labor team, including the two attorneys and my staff that are involved in that, and get back to you on that one.
Okay.
On the first one, we've been asked to review the court decision and provide some advice and guidance to planning staff as to the impact of that decision, and would be happy to share that information.
I'd love to be involved in that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. Ms. Gray-Jackson?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Honeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had our July meeting, Public Safety Committee, on the 17th, and had a good presentation from a couple of different folks, Governor's Council on Disabilities, as well as Committee on Toxin and Hazardous. Anyway, it was a good presentation from both, and we heard from the departments on their excitement about upcoming academy for the police, and the fire department academy, I believe, has started or will soon be started. If I'm not sure, Chief's here, so maybe he'll tell us that himself. But we will have our next scheduled meeting on Thursday, August 21st, and I expect we'll likely hear some from perhaps taxis and maybe towing.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Ms. Johnston?
We did have a sort of a committee of a whole work session on recycling in the community, and we were not able to get through all of the presenters, including getting a presentation from Solid Waste Services, so we will reschedule another half hour so we can hear from the school district and some metal recyclers and Solid Waste Services. Also, just a notice to the administration, I've been speaking with the chair, and we will be having a work session on the port probably the 1st of September. Before the September, last
10th and 24th.
Yeah, probably the 1st of September, so that must be the 7th, whatever the Friday is before the 10th.
6th.
6th. And I have sent an email to the clerk asking for a work session on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trainee?
That for a work session on managed competition at City Hall on, let's see, the 16th from 10:30 to 11. I really think we need at least an hour for that, sir. If you could ask the clerk's office to make that adjustment, I'd appreciate it.
I'll take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing other than that.
Okay, Mr. Trainee. That concludes our committee reports. We're now to addendum to the agenda and one laid on the table. Take a motion to incorporate.
Second.
Any objection? Hearing none, I will read the addendum to the agenda into the minutes. We begin with 9B9. It is AR 213S. It has to do with the Gamble Street Revitalization Project. We have, and it's accompanied by Assembly Memorandum Number AM460. We have 9D7, which is AM463, update the Port of Anchorage business plan. We have 9D8, AM465, consulting service for gas controller related services. 9D9, AM466, workers billing auditing services. We have 9E2, which is AM78. It is ML&P short-term gas purchase report, second quarter 2013. We have 9E3, which is AIM 79. It's the 2013 second quarter spending report for Utility and Enterprise Department. We have 9F12, AO91. It's for permit requirements, and that is scheduled for a public hearing on 8/2013. We have 9F13, AO number 92, submission by Municipal Light and Power, a proposed rate changes to the Regulatory Commission of Alaska, public hearing on 8/2013, and that's accompanied by AM number 464. 9F14, AR 214, Anchorage Service Patrol and Service Center, public hearing scheduled for 8/2013. And we have under new public hearings 14F2, it's AO 86S bar safety hour permit. And laid on the table, we have 9F4, AO number 89S, and that's an ordinance to the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code section 2108.050.1.2 to provide for and clarify the street lighting standards for collector streets located in Class B improvement areas under Title 21. These are laid on the table and addendum to the consent agenda. So I would, we now move to the consent agenda and ask for a motion.
Move to.
Move to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on that. Items to be pulled. I'll begin with Mr. Birch.
No items.
Ms. Dembowski.
No items.
Mr. Steele.
9A2.
Mr. Starr.
No items.
Mr. Flynn.
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Trombley.
9 Delta 3 is a potential conflict of interest. 9 Delta 8 and 9 Foxtrot 3.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Horniman.
9 Alpha 1 for reading and 9 Delta 1 for an amendment.
Ms. Johnston.
Yes, 9 B as in boy, 9, and 9, F as in fox, 4 for substitution.
Mr. Trainee.
Nothing, sir.
I'm showing items that we have pulled this evening is 9A1 and 2 for reading, 9B9, 9D1, D3, D8, and 9F3 and F4. Have I missed any items? Okay. I'm going to ask you to vote on the consent agenda lest the items that were pulled for consideration, if I can get the vote button to work. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
The consent agenda lest the items that have been pulled has been approved. We now have before us for reading item 9A1.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to approve and a second. Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that item is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to read Assembly Resolution number 2013-215, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing Michelle Taylor as Miss Alaska 2013. I'll give her just a second to walk up. And I love the adorning crown. Whereas the Miss Alaska Scholarship Program is part of the Miss America organization, and whereas the Miss Alaska Scholarship Foundation is established solely to provide contestants with the opportunity to enhance their professional and educational goals and to achieve those pursuits. And whereas the Miss Alaska Scholarship Foundation is based on a rich scholastic tradition that has been the cornerstone of the Miss Alaska program since 1958. And whereas in 1970, House Concurrent Resolution number 66 resolved that Miss Alaska shall serve as the official hostess for the state of Alaska. And whereas Michelle Taylor was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, homeschooled K through 12, graduated from Family Partnership Charter School in 2011, and is a junior at the University of Alaska Anchorage studying hospitality and restaurant management, a University of Alaska scholar, and has made Chancellor's List all 4 semesters at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And whereas Miss Michelle Taylor competed in the Miss Anchorage pageant in October 2012 and was first runner-up and won top interview, on-stage questions, and Miss Congeniality in the Miss Alaska pageant. And whereas Miss Michelle Taylor won the Miss Alaska pageant in 2013 and will be competing in the Miss America 2014 pageant in Atlantic City, New Jersey in September 2013. And whereas on June 28, 2013, Michelle Taylor displayed her talent performing on the piano the most influential ragtime compositions that introduced Scott Joplin to the world, Maple Leaf Rag. And her pageant platform is youth involvement in the political process. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Michelle Taylor as Miss Alaska 2013. Signed, passed, approved.
Thank you all very much. I'm very humbled and honored to represent you at the Miss America pageant. And if just a few weeks, it'll be on September 15th from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And my personal platform is youth involvement in the political process. And it's something I'm very passionate about because we all have a voice that needs to be heard. And we can come to places like assembly chambers and make our opinions known and then speak to you all to ask for your help in making our city and therefore our country a better place to live. And I am very thankful that you all are willing to represent myself and represent the state of Alaska, and I am honored to represent you all as Alaskans at the Miss America pageant. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, I'm very, very, very proud of you. And it's interesting that when I first found out that you were interested in the restaurant business, I had you help me cater a 5-course dinner for 6 people that I had won through an auction, and you were a star then, and I knew you'd be a star once again. And for those who don't know, Michelle happens to be the niece of former Assemblymember Melinda Taylor, and I know she's very, very proud of you, as is your family, and we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman?
And Michelle, I just, Miss Alaska, I believe I understand you're an East Anchorage resident?
I am.
And a constituent, so go East Side once again, Mr. And also, I'm very proud to say that you're a green and gold, a great day to be a Seawolf as well, and representing our university system. So congratulations and good luck in September, which is just around the corner. So I don't know if you're studying up and what you do for that, but good luck, and I hope you win.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations from all of us. You do us proud. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We now have before us item A2 for reading. Motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that motion is approved unanimously. Mr. Steele.
Thank you very much. This is a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing Autumn Harth as Miss Alaska Outstanding Teen 2013. Whereas Miss Alaska Teen USA competition is the pageant that selects the representative for the state of Alaska in the Miss Teen USA pageant. And whereas Miss Alaska 2013 scholarship pageant was held Saturday, October 6th, 2012, and whereas Miss Alaska organization's outstanding team competition for girls between the ages of 13 and 17 was held in conjunction with the Miss Alaska competition. And whereas Autumn Harth was crowned as Miss Anchorage Outstanding Teen 2013. And whereas Autumn Harth lived in Eagle River for 4 years, went to Mirror Lake Middle School, and now attends Chugiak High School as an upcoming sophomore, and is in the honors program along with being involved in her swing choir. And whereas Autumn's pageant platform is Ready for Life, American Cancer Society for research and support, and she worked hard to build up a team within her school, the planning committee, and other citywide teams. And whereas on June 28, 2013, Autumn Harth displayed her vocal talents singing the Pink song, Who Knew? Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Autumn Harth as Miss Anchorage Outstanding Teen 2013.
Thank you very much. My name is Autumn Harth, and I really appreciate this. Michelle and I, being Miss Alaska and now Miss Alaska's Outstanding Teen, this really means a lot to us, and we're both very honored. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, you're in the queue.
I am in the queue. I just wanted to, even though I read it and expressed for the Assembly, I wanted to personally thank you too. And are you going to sing for us tonight or not?
Oh, I wish I could.
Anyway, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Honeman.
I was thinking the same thing. You know, I mentioned to the body that we should start our meetings with some uplifting song or something. Like, it'd be great to hear you.
Well, you should call me someday, and I can come in and do that for you guys.
You know, we had a bell choir once from an elementary school.
Oh.
Really cool. Congratulations to you. And my only question, I'm just curious, do we still have a Miss Teen Alaska, or is this the new title for Miss Teen Alaska?
I was Miss Anchorage's teen back in October, and then so now I'm Miss Alaska's teen. So I hold both titles at the same time.
Congratulations on both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as a Chugiak alum myself, we are so proud of you, and we're glad that we have Chugiak represented. with a title, not just the East Side. But we're very, very proud of you. And it's not just the pageantry, but it's the service. And the work that you've done with Relay for Life, it's a wonderful thing to see in a younger generation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Autumn, I am so proud of both you and Michelle, and I look forward to watching the pageant on TV and seeing how well I know you're both going to do. And I wish I could go with you. I'm from New Jersey. I wish I could go with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. On behalf of the entire body, we hope you thoroughly enjoy your reign. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. We now have before the body item 9B9, AR 213 Gamble Street Revitalization Project. And Ms. Johnston, you pull that. Also, I'll note we've got an S version on that particular item.
Move to approve.
Second.
And I would like to amend.
The S version, yes. Ms. Johnston.
I'd like to amend the S version and actually postpone this to September 24th so that we can have a work session from the Fairview business community, and so we can better understand this before we move forward. And also, as I mentioned to them, maybe with this work session we can then become part of their team. Thank you. Do I have a second for the amendment?
And the amendment is?
To postpone this until September 24th.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any objection?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flynn, I've got you in the queue. Mr. Flynn.
Well, I guess I'm not strongly opposed to moving this to a work session, but the purpose of doing this appropriation out of cycle is that time is somewhat of the essence here. Mr. Foos from the Fairview Business Association is here. If there are specific questions that the members want to ask, he did provide some information in response to some of the questions that were posed by members. This was, of course, originally on the first agenda. It wasn't like this popped out of nowhere. But the purpose is to wrap up the reconnaissance work that the DOT has asked us to do so that we can consider an alternative for the Gamble Street resurfacing project. I'd prefer to see it passed tonight. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Johnston, thank you for your move to postpone this for a work session, but frankly, I don't think it's necessary at all. I think we have plenty of information here. The state gave us $200,000, and when you read all the material that's in the back of the resolution, it's sufficient, at least for me, to go forward and approve this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston, we're back to you. And while I'm back to you, the clerk has asked me if we could kind of clean up your motion. And actually, it's not an amendment, but it's a motion to postpone, and we need a date certain.
September 24th.
Okay. And you in the queue?
Yes, I have spent some time with or speaking with Mr. Foos this afternoon, and I also probably engaged a number of the questions for the responses that we all received. And I have to tell you that I'm always leery of going into our fund balances. And I understand the issue of, this didn't come up during budget time, but still, fund balances for emergencies, and it's not something I go into lightly. I don't think it's really great financial management to go into fund balances. And I'm not saying no to this, but I'm saying I need more information. We can say, well, it's only $83,000, but then there's another $100 and some odd thousand, and we start adding things up as far as we go into fund balances. And I just think it's fiscally prudent for us to spend a little bit of time understanding what this project is. Mr. Flynn had the benefit of hearing a presentation at AMATS, and the rest of us didn't. I don't have enough information from all the information Mr. Foos sent me to feel still comfortable to approve it tonight. So I just feel that we need to have an opportunity to understand the scope what they're discussing. I think it might be something that we're all very much want to get behind, but I don't think we should be doing this blindly. This is actually one of our major major roads into the community. And I'm looking forward to some great suggestions how to address it. I think Fairview could be a very vibrant community, but I just think let's take a minute. I also, and Mr. Fuse, if you'd like to come up here.
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Paul Foose, project manager for the Gamble Street redevelopment project.
And we were talking about this afternoon, and one of the reasons to do this quickly is you say the state is going to be paving it next year. Is that correct?
2015, DOT is going to resurface Gamble Street. So we're trying to get this work in time where we can underground the utilities and widen the sidewalks and do what we need to do at the time of that project so we don't have to go back and dig it up again later and redo it all over. And so we're trying to meet that sequence.
Right, and I understand and appreciate that. Do you feel a month delay would be a huge, would it impact it so you couldn't do that?
I think we could still do it, but really time is of the essence with this. We certainly look forward to giving you a lot more information. I think 3 or 4 of the members were at the AMATS hearing of the Assembly and heard this. We've done a lot of work, but we do need to move the project forward. If that's your choice to have us come before you within a work session, we'd be glad to do that.
Okay, thank you. Anyways, I encourage a yes vote as far as postponing it to September 24th. I think it as I say, it could probably even help the project if more of us are on board and are in agreement and want to be cheerleaders for this. But currently, to go into fund balance with what I know about this, I'm not comfortable. Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Johnson, for mentioning the fact that you don't think we should go into fund balance. Frankly, I think this is an appropriate use of fund balance, and the mayor himself said that we have a surplus, and I happen to agree with him. So I don't have any problem using fund balance to cover this expense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Horniman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hughes, I'm reading with interest the legislative request for the snapshot report, and it's clearly stated in the request of $200,000 for the state one-time need. So I'm just inquiring, it'll help make my decision for the night for postponement or not. Do you anticipate needing more than the $83,000 from our fund balance to finish your?
We do not. The most important thing after we do this homework, and DOT has given us a list of things we need to do to meet their requirements, would be to get the endorsement of the municipality for the project. That'll be the most important next step, not additional funding. But DOT has laid out a map for us of what we need to do to meet their requirements to move the project forward. That's what we would use the $83,000 for.
Thank you.
Mr. Starr.
Thank you. I heard just the last sentence, but I didn't hear over and above the $200,000 that PM&E has, which is our version of project management and engineering, for just what you quoted. What actually will you be doing for the $83,000?
What we've done is we've done the engineering to this point of the traffic engineering, how it would operate up to 2035, which is when highway to highway or something else is supposed to happen. To rebuild the road. We're not sure what that is, but what DOT has said is we need for municipal light and power. If you're going to underground it, how is that going to work? The drain system. It's an old drain system. This road was rebuilt. The light poles are right in the sidewalk. It's an ADA violation. It's a safety hazard. And all those things, and DOT is saying we need that all laid out for us so we have a clear idea of the budget that it's going to take. And there's also some work that has to be done with the private sector because AT&T and GCI have cable and wires also on the telephone poles there. It's pulling all that together into a package and saying here's what it's going to cost and here's what it's going to take to do. That's what the $83,000 for. Our contractor is CH2M Hill and Kittleson Associates.
Why isn't that work being coordinated and led and directed by PM&E under the greater project management? Why is it necessary to go to another entity such as the Fairview Business District to coordinate that? Why the extra?
Well, for a project like this, I think you really need an advocate, and you need somebody that's going to pull all of those things together. That's not necessarily the way that that those things are done in project management. The city wanted to completely take the project over and do it. I guess we'd be okay with that, but it just doesn't seem to work that way unless you have a community advocate that's working with the community council, with the businesses there, and with everybody else. This isn't just like, you know, building a bike trail or something like that. It's got a lot of moving parts. Because it wasn't pulled together like that, that's part of why Highway to Highway fell apart and was actually taken off the table. You have to pull everyone together and do that homework, or these projects just don't happen.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the administration to respond to that? Is that a fair estimation of a need? And I don't want to start a debate necessarily, but is the scope of work requested necessary, in your opinion, from the administration and the PM&E's ability to do it?
At some point in time, you know, that type of work is necessary. And you brought up the question, you know, should the Fairview Community Business Association do it, or Public Works through PM&E? You know, Public Works does have the capability to do these type of projects and get all kinds of community input. But I would like to correct just one thing that was said earlier. PM&E does not have the 200K, nor have they had any visibility over it. That was a direct grant that went right to the Business Association, so it never came through the city.
So in essence, then your budget to manage that from the scope of work that you're talking about has been $200,000 plus. I misread it. I had thought that PM&E was engaged already for $200. So you're saying your fees and investments are going to be $283 then?
That's correct, sir. And there's an additional $50,000 that we raised of our own members. Our members put up to $2,500 apiece in dues to the Business Association to help make this happen. Okay. So we've got some personal skin in the game as well.
I guess the next question, maybe through purchasing, is do we have a purchasing restriction that allows us to direct appropriate? I know Kittleson Associates and some of the others that have used for project management and outreach, you know, now we're doing a direct appropriation. Does that violate any of our purchasing agreements requirements under Chapter 7?
Through the chair, Mr. Starr, I don't believe it does.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
I have no one else in the queue.
Thank you.
We are going to vote, but what I would ask of you, Ms. Johnston, I'm willing to accommodate a work session on the 6th, with this coming back before us on the 10th. Yes. I understand, but I need to change the date prior to the vote.
I could concur, and I think second.
Yeah. Mr. Flynn is receptive to that. So your motion would actually read postpone till September the 10th.
Just to clarify, Mr. I prefer that.
Yes, prefer that. Not endorsing, but prefer. Okay, we're voting on the motion to postpone until September the 10th. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
No.
That motion fails 7-4. Now we're back to the original motion. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries with 10-1. We now have before us item 9D1.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I apologize. Before proceeding, I would like to ask that you, the Fairview Business Association, take you up on your offer for a 30-minute work session on this at our September 6th work session. So if the clerk's office could coordinate with Mr. Foos, I'd appreciate
yes,
that.
I'll be pleased to schedule that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, I'd like to move immediate reconsideration and urge a no vote.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion for immediate reconsideration and a second. Please vote. I'm assuming you're urging a no vote.
As stated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flynn, are you in the queue? Ewer, and Ms. Gray Jackson we've got. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
No.
That motion fails. We now have before us item 9D1 AM 439, the Office Cocktail Lounge Beverage Dispensary License at number 806. Mr. Honeman, you pulled that one?
That's right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes, sir. Through the chair, I need to make an amendment on 9 Delta 1 at line 24. And I draw your attention, the amendment will, before I proceed with the amendment, it's explainable in the agreement. It was passed out just moments ago by the municipal attorney. And the owner of KDAJ Investment, Ms. Keisha Schmall, is in attendance, so we can ask any questions, but I would probably call her up in a moment and ask the body's indulgence. But my amendment will read this. On line 1, where it says waive the protest, comma, subject to the agreement attached. And then also on line 28, after beverage dispensary liquor license number 806, comma, in accordance with the agreement dated August 6, 2013. If I can get a second. Second. And I'll explain, Mr. Chairman, further if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Essentially, Ms. Small is a successful business operator with other businesses in Anchorage. This is her first opportunity to run a beverage dispensary license, and certainly is very responsive to my inquiries on behalf of the Assembly to the Public Safety Committee. She was in our Public Safety Committee in June and had agreed to the items on the agreement that you see attached, particularly and specifically the security as raised by concerns in the community and members of the Public Safety Committee and this body. So I believe Ms. Small is fully intending to honor the agreement, and I'd ask perhaps if she wants to come up. I can tell you that I've had two more recent phone calls with Ms. Small. She's been very responsive and takes her role in ownership of the liquor license and this business very seriously. So, Ms. Small, just if you would just address the security things for the body. I know you stated it at the steps you're going to be taking for the security both internally and externally at the business.
Hi, my name is Keisha Small for KDAJ, doing business as the Alaska Liquor. Some of the concerns that had come up were security and securing the outside of the premises of the office lounge to basically ensure that a lot of the patrons are not outside of the office lounge after the time that it closes at 2:45, and also, to ensure that individuals are getting home safely, and just to make sure that the premises are more safe. So we have hired security outside the premises to make sure to ensure that for the patrons and other individuals outside of the office lounge.
And Ms. Small, you've also taken steps internally as well and training staff?
Yes. We've taken steps inside as far as our own security. Inside we have our own internal security. Outside we will have external security from another business that's going to do the outside security. We've done training. We've also done a scanner that we've implemented at the office lounge. We've done a lot of reassurances, well, not reassurances, but we've done a lot of communication with our employees as far as the concerns that we had before and what it's going to need to be as far as making sure that we all work as a team to make sure that our patrons are safe in there.
Thank you.
Okay. I have no one else in the queue. We are voting on the amendment.
And to be clear, the agreement will be an attachment to the AM 91?
Correct. Please vote on the amendment. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We are now voting on the item as amended. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 9D3, AM 445, Bagra-Rica Water and Sewer Upgrade Project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Trombley has a potential conflict to declare.
When this first came before us, I declared a conflict of interest, and it was determined that I did not have one, but just for transparency's sake, I thought I would mention that I do have a rental unit on RECA, but there's no financial incentive involved in this project going through for me. So just, like I said, just for transparency's sake, I thought I'd mention it again.
Okay. Well, once again, I find that you do not have a conflict. I ask if the body concurs. You will be able to vote on this item. And we've got that. Do we have a motion? We've got the conflict, but we need a motion to approve it. There is. Okay. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
We now have before us item 9D8, AM 465, Consulting Service for Gas Controller Related Services. Mr. Trombley, you pull this item.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'd ask if Mr. Posey would please come up. I have just a few questions for him. The reason I pulled this is because what I found interesting about it was that the individual who's being contracted out to do the work used to work for MLMP. He works for a different company, but he provides a unique knowledge to MLMP, so they've contracted out for him to do the work that he used to do in-house. And one of my concerns, and I expressed it at the leadership meeting with the administration on Monday, was whether or not we have a robust succession plan so that when people do leave, we don't have to contract out that work, that we can't keep that in-house. Because obviously, as by the answer from the administration, this is going to cost more than if we did keep it in-house. So if you could talk a little bit about your succession plan, where are you at so far? What can the Enterprise Committee do to help ensure that we don't continue to run into this?
Through the chair, Assemblymember Trombley would welcome the opportunity to work with the Enterprise Committee on our needs for supervisory and managerial succession planning. It is very important, and a robust training program is also important. We had one at one time, but our training and travel budget was cut twice in the last 3 years. So we're going at cross purposes. I'm losing people faster than I can get them in, and when we do lose them, we've had this opportunity to try to get people to work for us for a while we trained and/or recruit. This kind of position is the one that's made a lot of money for us. Basically, it's the buy, sell, trade, and schedule gas. We are a gas broker in the state, especially in the Cook Inlet area, and we've been able to leverage that into some real dollars, and we'd like to continue to do that, and having this contract will help us move toward that objective. But I'd like to work with the chair of the Enterprise Committee so that we can sit down and talk about what we need to do. Thank you.
And one other question for you is, are there a lot of individuals within MLMP that provide a unique skill set that if they did leave, are we talking 15 people, 20 people, 5 or 6? Because those dollars add up over time, and then it goes to the rate base, and we're already seeing the increase.
Through the chair, Mr. Trombley, we probably have about 240 critically skilled people, but we have probably anywhere from 10 to 25 at any one time that are supercritical that we have no backup for. Or if the backup is there, it would be double duty, triple duty for someone else to do. And handling that is more than a notion. And so looking at those, let's say, 25 critical positions and doing a succession planning as well as robust training of at least one backup would be important.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Posey.
Okay.
See no one else in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We have now before us 9F4 AO89. I'll note there is, pardon? 9F4 and AO89. I note there is an S version. Clarify the street lighting standard for collector streets located in Class B improvement areas under Title 21 New Code.
I move to introduce the S version.
Second.
Third.
Yeah, F4. Oh, did I skip 3? Okay.
I said third.
Yes, we'll go back and pick up 3. I've got a motion and a second. Anyone, any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. No. Oh, this is introduction. I'm sorry. Okay, we now have before us item 9F3, AO number 90. This is Village South Subdivision, Track 1, Eklutna Acres Subdivisions, Lots 1 through 4.
Mr. Chair?
No motion.
Oh, you need a...
We don't have to postpone. We're just pulling from the agenda tonight to introduce it, so there doesn't...
And we have some explanation on that.
Yes, Mr. Vikalis.
Yes, sir. We need to go back and do some rework on this, and so we're requesting that it not be introduced.
It's already gone through planning and zoning, though, correct?
It has, but it does have some changes that has to be made into it. In other words, we have to police up some of the things that's said in it to make it correct.
How long, I guess, would be the question. I think there's some opportunity for fall work. The MEA power plant nearby in particular, do you know if the petitioner needs to be time of the essence?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Starr, Jerry Weaver, Community Development. We plan to have it in tomorrow it'll be delayed 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you for that. I have no objection to that. It's just time is of the essence to move it along.
Okay. Ms. Johnston?
I wasn't going to bring this up, but I had a member of the Planning and Zoning Committee mention to me that the reason we are pulling this is because there was verbiage about the buffer that actually Planning and Zoning had taken out, and it was then placed into our packet. Is that correct?
There is a discrepancy in the buffer, yes.
And Planning and Zoning had passed one set of I think it was like 20 feet or whatever, 0, and this has anyways, this has a buffer in it.
As I understand it, there is a correction that needs to be made to the buffer to be consistent with what was done in the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Trombley?
If time is of the essence, as Mr. Starr states, why can't we just leave it on the agenda, introduce it, and then amend it when it comes to us?
The title wouldn't change, I don't imagine.
Are we talking about a title change with the amendments, Mr. Vikalis?
I'll ask Mr. Weaver to address that.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Trombley, it really would be the cleanest, you could do it either way, but it would be the cleanest to let us introduce the correct ordinance tomorrow. It was an error on the department's part to put this forward with that provision in there. And we've had discussion with the applicant to let them know that there will be a 2-week delay. We sent them a letter a few days ago. I don't believe all the time is of the essence for all involved. You could take the ordinance up should you choose, but since it's a dispute with the property owner whether this provision should be there, we're going to remove the requirement out of the ordinance as approved by the Planning Commission, but in the AM we're going to suggest that you put it in.
Well, I'll defer to Mr. Starr, being that this is your area, or Ms. Domboski as well, but I'm good with not kicking it down the road and just amending it when it comes before us.
Mr. Starr?
Yeah, I guess with all due respect, it would be more than just a 2-week delay because we would have to introduce and then hear the item. So if we can keep it on track and update the moments, I think it makes sense to just leave it in there. We're coming into September, so it seems procedural and perhaps even a debate item. So in that case, I would just urge that we leave it alone and let it introduce. So make a motion to introduce as necessary.
Second.
Do we need a third?
Third.
Okay. That concludes our consent agenda. We're going to break for our dinner break, and we'll be back around 6:30. Assembly members take their seat. We'll begin the restart the meeting. Ms. Johnston, I want to begin with you.
Yes, I'd like to set a public hearing date for the 9F4 to be October 8th.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any objection to that? Seeing none, we will schedule that for October 8th. Thank you, Ms. Johnston. We now have before us item 13A, which is AO number 51, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code 3.30.174, govern executive compensation to update pay ranges, including reporting timelines and information, and provide for limitations. We are going to open this for public testimony, but this item is going to be postponed. It was actually on here through error on our part, and will be coming back before us on the 20th. Is that the date we're scheduled back?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. 16th, yes. Work session on the 16th, back before the body. So with that, anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing none, Mr. Trombley.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the public hearing date to the regular assembly meeting of August 20th. If I can get a second.
Thank you. Any objection? Second. Hearing none, that item is rescheduled for August 20th meeting. We now have before us item 14A, AO number 59, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage providing for a revision of the Anchorage School District budget for FY 2013-2014. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve and second. Mr. Starr.
Maybe Mr. Abbott, I've got a question, and for those on the body here, it's on our page 386. I'll be talking about lines 45 through 52. We talked a little bit about this at break, Mr. Abbott. This is referencing the $1.5 million that we have in contingency. And for those on the body that remember, this $1.5 million was a set-aside, and I don't want to paraphrase if it's wrong, but it was a set-aside because we don't always know the attendance amounts early enough, and so we sort of have to hedge taxes. And if we miss the attendance and the state funding formula by a little bit, potentially the school district could be short-funded. So we set up a $1.5 million fund a year and a half ago when we had basically an overtax collection. My question to you, Mr. Abbott, is why is this necessary to talk about in this part? Because the $1.5 million doesn't go into the math strictly below it. And so why are we needing to reinforce that this money exists?
I think it's mostly designed to be to help explain the impact of raising the upper limit, which is primarily associated with accepting legislative grants for capital projects. But there are also potential increases in state support associated with primarily special ed and a couple of other potential attendance increases, Alaska Native Charter and others. If those attendance increases led to an opportunity for the municipality's maximum local contribution to be higher than what was anticipated in March, then the 1.5 would be available to cover that. So the commitment the Assembly made, has made in any number of years, is to provide the maximum local contribution. And since we don't know what that is when we actually set the mill rate, that $1.5 million exists in case more money is necessary. It's equally likely that the district will actually get less than what was imagined if our attendance turns out to be below what was projected. So this is just discussed here. This ordinance will not change anything related to the 1.5. It still remains up to the municipality to determine what that maximum local contribution is once the attendance for the district has been determined in September.
Correct. Or we decide also what our local contribution formula is going to be when we set the mill rate, and also talk about it at your budget. Is that also a fair statement?
That's correct.
Okay. What I learned, and I had some conversations with our CFO, was that we actually needed to use it as a leveling device last year, and we used it about $300,000. And if you remember the conversation, I actually came to the office and spoke to you about how much money we thought we would need to buffer a worst case scenario, and so we came up with the 1.5 million. So there's two questions I have for you. Is that the number's not really 1.5 million according to our CFO, because we had to use some of it for leveling of about 300,000. Is that, do you understand, did that happen? So
I have no reason to believe it didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, that is correct. We transferred $345,000 in June.
So should this number actually be 1.5, or should it be 1.5 million less what we've got? Because there's been no other appropriation to bring it back up to 1.5, has there?
Right. Currently, there's $1.2 million in this set aside for the school district. Should the school district's enrollment be such that they needed 1.5, we would only have 1.2 available.
And I guess the second question is, when we had the formula change, we all sort of had a different interpretation of what the legislation was actually going to do, so we cautioned on it. Do we need to set aside and encumber 1.2 or 1.5 million still? Is that a number that we need to do, or are we tying up money that we could be using for other things?
I think, and Ms. Mahoney can correct me, I believe essentially that the 1.2 is appropriated to the district. But that doesn't mean we get it. We only get it if our numbers justify it. And Lucinda, correct me if I get this wrong.
I'd like to have a response to that. Is that the way you feel about that?
I don't think that it's been appropriated to the district. I think that this body chose to set aside money in the general fund, in the operating budget, to adjust for fluctuating headcount. Okay, so for 2013, it was appropriated. For 2014, it would need to be reevaluated.
And I guess when I heard you say that out there, that's why I wanted that comment to be on there, because I believe that we actually we appropriate when we need to level where we miss the math, and that's really what I want to make sure of. So I guess I'll leave it in here tonight. I was just going to delete it and keep the other appropriations pure and clean and deal with the 1.5 or the 1.2 million as your attendance numbers come in, or we need to do the math to level it out. And so I don't know if I get support to strike it, but when will you have your enrollment numbers enough to be able to do the math? When do they traditionally come in?
I believe that's the count period ends in late September, early October.
Okay, so if I strike it, it's only to clarify the fact that it isn't appropriated, because this is how I spoke to you gentlemen at break, was that I felt that this 1.5 was being appropriated in this action, and I'm not sure that's the intention of it, is to appropriate it over to that side of the line.
If you're talking about the language on page 2, line 45 through 52, we would not object.
Okay, and I would do that. So I appreciate your dialogue on it, and you know, the idea that we need to have a leveling fund, I don't dispute. It's just a matter of how much and how we stay in touch with that. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Ms. Mahoney?
Yes, through the chair, I just wanted to set the record straight in regard to how we look at the final enrollment numbers, and I know that the CFO who was previously working on this isn't here, and we have a new one, Mark. But anyways, we don't distribute that money for additional enrollment until the state of Alaska has gone through and audited the numbers, and that doesn't happen until April. And so, for example, for this year, I received a memo with the audited numbers for a request for disbursement in the month of June.
If I may, given that, is it still appropriate then to take that verbiage out of this action tonight?
We would not object.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to keep the other appropriation actions separate so we can have that conversation every year. Thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. Trombley?
Ms. Mahoney, hopefully you can clarify this. I seem to be a little bit confused. The $1.5 million that was set aside was there to float them, to make them whole until they got the total funding, is what I thought. And then once they got that total funding, we would that fund would then be reimbursed for the money that we loaned them. Is there a reason? You might have brought this up earlier, but I thought that $300,000 is supposed to come back to us to make that fund back to 1.5.
At the time that we received the request from the school district to move the $345,000, we did actually go through that analysis to determine if we needed to present this to the body with an appropriation. And my staff had worked with the legal department to do some review, and we had concluded at that time that it did not need to come before this body because it was appropriated as a part of the operating budget.
Right, but my recollection is that the school district, once they got the total funding from the state, after they got their full enrollment, that they didn't need that money to float them, so they didn't have to do the layoff of the teachers, only to turn around and hire them back. That's also what this fund was for, and that when the state did give them the full amount of funding, that they would reimburse us for whatever they took out of that fund.
No, Mr. Trombley. This funding relates exclusively to the actual enrollment of the number of students in the school district, and I am not aware that it has anything to do with teachers.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Steele?
Yeah, I just hope that we're clear. Given the district's lowered funding from the state, I'm hoping that we or the lowered number that the local government can contribute to education. I'm hoping that we keep in mind that we try every way we can to provide the school district with their upper level that they can spend based upon the state's limitation, and so I'm hoping we just keep that in mind, such that they have done a fantastic job on grants and pulling in some additional money. That's what the school district does, though, is they beg for money. They are not a taxing authority, and so they get what people give them. And I hope that we keep in mind to try to make them whole when and if we have the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Starr?
I'm going to move to strike the language out of the AO of lines 45 through 52.
Second.
I appreciate the dialogue earlier and the understanding of the topic, but what Mr. Steele said was sort of the opportunity to make them whole, I think, is the intention and the separate discussion that we have every year, either in June when the final reconciling comes in or when the attendance numbers show more of that. So I really want to keep that conversation separate so that we do have it every year and that we kind of level the attendance calculations based on the new formula fundings around a really prudent conversation, and it just doesn't dial in anywhere. The conversation, just so you know, I also support it, is that the conversation on this very topic is preserved inside the school board's packet, if you will, attached to our ordinance. And I'm not going to pull that language out. Obviously, it's minutes from the school board's discussion, but that's the reason. I just think it's a separate topic, and it makes sense. And I think at the end of the night, the appropriation as requested from the state passes through just fine. Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we all know, this document is not an appropriation, but it's just revising the budget. And lines 45 to 52, it's just a statement. I don't know, maybe it's a reminder. But it's a statement, and it really doesn't matter if it's in here or not. So I'll support Mr. Starr's amendment to strike that paragraph. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. There's no one else in the queue. Please vote on the amendment. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries 10 with 1 opposed. We now have the original item before us. No one else in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That item carries. Mr. Abbott, you can go home now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, my apology. When I came back from the meeting, I was going to immediately cue you in, and then Ms. Johnston distracted me. So if you would, Mayor Dan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Johnson can be very distracting.
That's already there.
That's the end of my report, sir. No, I apologize for being late. I was at the Covenant House grand opening. Really a tremendous event, over 300 people in attendance, and a project that we have supported both with our capital dollars and on an annual basis. We support Covenant House with their operating costs as well, and so a good community triumph, if you will, because many thousands of kids over the decades are going to be served by this facility. So really a great community project. And then just a couple of notices that you may or may not have heard about. Solid Waste Services were very honored. They received a National Silver Award for the landfill methane project, which is given because of the excellence in both the planning and execution of the project. And then you may have heard, those of you who were at the AEDC lunch, that Kiplinger, which is one of the most respected organizations and publications, rated Anchorage in the top 10 cities to live in America. We're number 9. So again, nice to see that we're receiving national recognition for our great quality of life here in Anchorage. And that's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We now have before us item 14B, AR 185, a resolution confirming the 2013 assessment roles and levying special assessments for services on properties specially benefited in Downtown Improvement District, Special Assessment District ISD 97, setting the dates of assessment and providing for assessment billings, payment due dates, applications of payments, delinquency, penalties, interest, and costs for delinquency, and enforcement and appropriating assessment revenues to the Special Assessment Fund 271 for services benefiting the property owners in Special Assessment District ISD 97. This item is before the body for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Good evening.
Good evening. Chris Schutte, Executive Director for Anchorage Downtown Partnership, here to report on the Improvement District. I have a handout I would like to disseminate to you all. It helps supplement what I'm going to talk about. Chairman Hall, members of the Anchorage Assembly, as I mentioned, I'm Chris Schutte. I am the Executive Director for Anchorage Downtown Partnership. We are the private, not-for-profit company that manages the Downtown Improvement District, otherwise known as the DID. I wish to take this opportunity for public testimony on Resolution AR 2013-185 to provide the body with a very brief annual report on the successes of the district. The document that I have provided to you, and apparently I provided too few, I apologize. Okay. The document I provided to you contains various metrics for both our organization internally as well as for the impact of our services on the business and property owners of the district in 2012. First, the financial picture or the company snapshot of the figures in there that I'd like to highlight. The assessment funds for the district grew modestly in 2012. In other words, the valuations of downtown properties held fairly steady between 2011 and 2012. However, we saw a significant decrease in the amount of money that we were able to raise in non-assessment revenue. We strive to generate revenues equal to, or in some years greater than, the amount of money collected by the assessment through grant applications, fee in lieu payments, contract services, in-kind services, etc. The decline in overall supplemental grant funding and fee in lieu payments of 2012 impacted our bottom line. Though the largest increase or decrease that occurred last year was simply in the amount of in-kind revenue that we received through donated goods, services, etc. If anything, I think that can be attributed to a general belt tightening throughout the community in the amount of money that's freely available to support nonprofit organizations and their causes. Assessment revenue last year made up 63% of our organization's annual revenue for 2012, though normally we strive for a 50-50 split between assessment dollars and the dollars we raise ourselves. However, even with declining revenues last year, we were able to maintain our service delivery through a lean administrative workforce of just 5 employees and a strong presence on the street through 22 individuals employed as either maintenance ambassadors or security ambassadors. These men and women who serve as ambassadors accomplished a great deal in 2012. On the maintenance side of things, one number I'd like to highlight is we performed snow and ice removal throughout downtown area. We were able to perform that on over 2,800 blocks last year. We measure our snow removal by block on a block-by-block basis. That number is extremely high. It comes as no surprise. Last year was an epic winter. We had a lot of snow. We were able to keep our downtown sidewalks free of snow and ice to the best of our abilities in coordination with private contractors as well as with the municipality's formidable streets and maintenance department. We also remained very active on graffiti removal in 2012. It's another high-profile activity of the organization, covering up over 542 pieces in 2012 while removing over 1,000 stickers and or illegally posted flyers in downtown. On the security side of things, the data that you have before you shows more interesting outcomes. We had a slight decrease in the number of calls for public intoxication or publicly intoxicated individuals. We're seeing that those calls are being replaced this year by calls for drug users, particularly people who use spice. You've heard this issue before. Spice is growing in the community and especially in the downtown community. In fact, spice use has grown so much that we now receive almost as many calls for spice or suspected spice use as we do for people who are drunk in public. We're disturbed by this primarily because spice has a very unpredictable outcome. It puts our ambassadors sort of in harm's way and certainly puts members of the public in harm's way. It is a large challenge for our ambassadors. Those packets contain much more information than I was able to cover in my brief time, and I stand here ready for questions. Thank you.
Mr. Starr. Thanks for your energy on managing that. You made mention about the snow clearing and some of that. Do you, and this isn't to be a critical statement, do you just push it into the street?
Through the chair, yes, Assemblyman Starr. In the downtown district, we're one of the few districts that actually the city hauls all of its snow rather than plows to the sides. So property owners within the downtown area are instructed to push all snow off of public rights-of-way like sidewalks into the streets.
And the alleys or some of the parking lots, do they do that too then, or what's the process that you follow for that?
Through the chair, alleys are maintained separately by streets and maintenance, and those are plowed less frequently, but they are also hauled out. Parking lots, which are primarily privately owned in downtown, they are responsible for all of their snow removal, and they're not allowed to push their snow into the public rights-of-way. In fact, we oftentimes end up dealing with right-of-way with people who violate that.
Yourself, you do that, or do you suck in or bring in the municipal staff?
We bring in the municipality.
All right, thanks for your energy.
Mr. Honeman.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Schutte, for bringing up the topic of spice and the public safety. I was curious. I know that there's been an increased presence by the police, their school resource officers, and some CAP team officers to help out down there. Have you noticed, are your security ambassadors and are you guys working together, and do you have a plan for, I guess, after summer months to try to maintain some, I guess, a good presence and as well as making people feel safe when they're walking around downtown and town square?
Through the chair, yes, Assemblyman Honeman, we noticed a very big pronounced difference when APD bike patrols began. Our security ambassadors interface with them regularly, and they have had a really tremendous impact on the statistical side of things. It's very clear when we look at our monthly numbers, there's a marked decrease once they started up their patrols. They've had a great impact. Looking long term, this is an issue that has a bigger solution than increased security and police presence, that I think this more work needs to be put into getting to the root of the issue, and that is whether it's through tighter regulation of the substances that go into spice, et cetera. There has to be a better way other than us just chasing them down.
Thanks.
Mr. Birch.
Just wanted to thank you for the report. I just wanted to follow up. Chairman Hall and I attended the ACDA meeting recently, where there's kind of a significant amount of discussion regarding the Saturday market and the summer operation downtown. Do you see that as an asset or a liability within the context of the downtown partnership and your membership and the people that are basically paying the bills here?
Through the chair, Assemblyman Birch, yes. It's nearly universally accepted among downtown stakeholders, business owners, property owners, that the weekend market is an attractor. Where opinions diverge is the question of, does that attract people to the market itself, or does it attract them to downtown as a destination? We have a diversity of opinions on that, but when it boils down to is that everybody recognizes the market has been a very strong attraction, but the question is whether or not it attracts to the community or simply to itself.
That would be my assessment as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Schutte. Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. No one in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item number 14C, AO number 78, an ordinance amending the zoning map and approving the rezoning of approximately 0.96 acres from R6, a suburban residential district, to R1SL, a single-family residential district, with special limitations for a portion of tract E1-A1A, Terraces subdivision, generally located south of East 12th Avenue and west of Kane Street. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14D, AO number 79, an ordinance amending the zoning map and approving the rezoning of approximately 6,865 square feet from the R6 district to the B3 district, and 5,027 square feet from the B3 district to the R6 district, from lots 97 and 98, section 9, T15 North, R1 West, generally located east of North Birchwood Loop Road and north of McKinley View Avenue. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, the item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14E, AO number 60, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly to amend Anchorage Municipal Code and zoning map of the municipality of Anchorage by enacting a new chapter under Title 21, establishing the Eklutna Village Overlay District. I will let known that this item will be postponed, but we do have it for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing none, Mr. Trombley?
Move to postpone to December 3rd.
No, it's moved to postpone November 5th.
Right in budget season. We talked.
Well, it's your area, Mr. Starr. So whatever you feel would be best for you.
Yeah, and I would like December 3rd if you wouldn't mind. and I know there was a date flexing there, but it's got to go to planning and zoning still, be revised, and then come to us for action. So if we could do it after budget.
All right, I'll make the motion. So I'll move to refer AO 2013-60 to the Planning and Zoning Commission and have it brought back before the regular assembly meeting of December 3rd.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to postpone to December the 3rd. Any objection from the body? Mr. Trainee? No objection, sir. Seeing hearing no objection, that will be postponed till December the 3rd.
And Mr. Chairman, procedurally, I don't know that it matters, but if you want to change the sponsorship to myself and Ms. Demboski, that would be helpful too, so we can
Very good.
take the calls from the public.
We'll have the clerk take care of that. We now have before us item 14F, AO number 86, an ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 10.50, alcoholic beverages, to provide for a bar safety hour permit to address the safe and orderly dispersal of patrons on weekends and holidays, premises licensed by the State Alcoholic Beverage and Control Board. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Yes, and the S version. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none.
Move the S version.
Okay. Motion to approve the S version.
I'll second, Mr. Trainee.
And a second. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee? Who are we missing? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Trainee.
For all their work they put on getting this ready to go. The paperwork's done. We've got everything ready. All we need now are the bars to step to the plate and enter the program. So we'll see how this goes.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. Mr. Horniman?
Just for a note of information, and I'm not sure how we facilitate it, through the chief before he leaves out here. I've talked to a couple of patrol officers and supervisors out on the street at field level, and they're a little confused as to what the safety hour means. So I think it's due that we need to give some sort of education or a brief, as to what it's going to mean, practically speaking, for the operators in the field, what they're looking at. So I don't know how we accommodate that, but Mr. Trainee, myself, or whomever from this body might need help.
Mr. Horniman, I think you and I can take care of that when I get back in town at the clerk's office.
Yes. Chief Mew?
I've left I'm sorry, Mr. Hunneman, through the chair. We've left the senior command staff informed about this, but we haven't really been talking to the troops yet about it because it's been going back and forth. They didn't really know if it was going to happen. But now that it's a done deal, you can rest assured that we'll be putting out the new program, and we'll be ready for it.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, this is Dick Trainee. Thanks again for helping the process for this ordinance to come forward.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Chief.
We now have before us item 14G, AR number 188, a resolution. A resolution, the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $500,000 as a contribution from the area-wide General Fund 101 to the miscellaneous operational grants funds 261 for the Anchorage Centennial Celebration, all within the mayor's department. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one point of clarification. Is this from area-wide general fund balance?
Ms. Mahoney?
Right. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Through the chair, it is not in fund balance.
Right. I misunderstood it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee.
Yes.
Ms. Gray-Jackson. Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14H, AR 189, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $1,325,000 contribution approved in the 2013 general operating budget from the Eagle River Chugiak Parks and Recreation Service Area Fund 162, Parks and Recreation Department to the Eagle River Chugiak Parks and Recreation Service Area Capital Improvement Projects Fund 462, Parks and Recreation Department for capital maintenance and improvements. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes.
conflict on 14I. I needed to close.
Yes, sir.
Should I do it now?
Yes.
In previous actions, I've been exempted from actions on this. I managed a project that directly benefited from the road improvements on 40th Street, and I still manage the building for a profit through my company. So
We'll excuse you when it comes time to vote.
I should go.
Yep. We have now before us item 14I, AR 190, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage reappropriating $476,695 to the State Direct Federal Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 from the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area Capital Improvement Fund 441 in the Public Works Department for the 40th Avenue Extension Road Improvement Project from Lake Otis Parkway to Dale Street from the legislative grants in the state of Alaska, Senate Bill 221/256. 221/256. This item is before the body for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Second.
Okay. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That item carries 10 with one recused. We now have before us 14J, AR number 199, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $250,000 from the Valley View Estates Limited Road Access Area Fund 113, fund balance to the Valley View Estates LSR Fund, LRSA Fund 1113, 2013 General Operating Budget, Public Works Department for 2013 operating expenses for year-round road maintenance within the Valley View Estates LRSA. The item is before the body for public testimony.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't know if it's appropriate this time, but I am a member of that service area. If the chair wants to rule, I don't know if that presents an issue or not.
If it is, I couldn't vote on the arts bonds.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Mr. Starr?
Perhaps Ms. Johnston can tell me, the memo from the Board of Supervisors speaks to an appropriation directly out of fund balance. Is there a surplus in this 113 through prior taxation that generated more money than they thought, or why is there money left over in there?
I could not, this isn't my limited road service district.
I thought it was. I thought it was your LRSA.
No, it's
Mr. Starr, it is my LRSA.
Where's the money coming from?
Basically out of the homeowners that have taxed themselves over the years and accumulated an excess revenue, and I could defer to the administration to confirm that. Thank you.
Yes, that is correct, through the chair. Many of our LRSAs had fund balance surpluses as we went into 2013, but with the challenges that we had with the weather this year, they're spending more than they have historically, and so they're spending into fund balance.
Is the fund balance the same policy reserve that we have as a general operating reserve, Ms. Mahoney, for their policies, or is it a situation where we had a prior budget surplus that carried forward?
It varies. Some of them have a bond requirement in regard to a set-aside, but not a working capital set-aside. And some of them are, the 8 1/4, and some of them are 10. Each one of them are different.
Just offhand, is there a lot of money in Fund 113? Do you know? Or I don't want to put you on the spot. I can come offline, but I know when I first started, some of our balances were pretty high, and we didn't tax as much the next year to level them.
Yeah, that's typically what we do. And we do look at their fund balance, and then we don't tax if they have a lot of surplus. I don't know right off the top of my head what this one is, but.
Okay. But clearly you certified the funds, so we can.
That's right. The staff would have looked at it and certified it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. See no one else in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item number 14K, AR 194. A resolution adopting the 2013 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan, which constitutes the application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Energy Solutions Grant. This resolution appropriates the annual entitlement grants from HUD, program income, and recaptured funds in the amount of $1,772,393 in CDBG entitlement and $591,911 in home entitlement and $59,945 in program income recaptured funds and $124,916 of ESG entitlement to the Department of Health and Human Services, all to Federal Grant Fund 241. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, item is before the body for action.
Second.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We are now in item 15, special orders. There are none. Unfinished agenda. There is none. Item 17, audience participation. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all?
I believe you. Thank you, everybody. My name is Daryl. I'm kind of a little nervous tonight, actually, just to let you know. I'm actually speaking from what I would consider an outline. I know I sent you guys an email this week that I said I was going to speak about alphabet soup. And the PDF that I sent you was the most recent thing that the CDC, the people I choose to call as the fluoride Nazis, has put out about fluoridation. And it was a study that they did that studied the non-cancerous effects of water fluoridation. Now, I'm hoping that something stuck out to all of you about that, and it was the title of the study. I've come up here and I've talked about Dr. Dean Burke and the cancer rates, and the people that are in favor of fluoridation did a study, and they didn't study the cancer effects of fluoridation. They studied the non-cancerous effects of fluoridation, and I hope that that has made you guys think a little bit about why they would do that. And now I'm going to get a little bit into the alphabet soup part about this. The CDC claims a false authority over our water supply. They do not have authority over our water supply. It's the EPA that has authority over our water supply. I have showed you documents from the EPA's website that says that fluoride is a neurotoxic and it affects the brain. This information correlates with the Harvard study that's on the National Institute of Health website that says that water fluoridation lowers IQ of children. These are serious issues. The study that they did actually, the EPA commission has the authority over the water supply. The CDC is claiming a false authority over the water supply, and they commissioned a study. Now, who did they have do this study? Well, they had this place called Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Oak Ridge National Laboratory, but you should know its name is synonymous with the Manhattan Project. And the Manhattan Project, as you know, is about the nuclear industry. This study was commissioned by the CDC, and the Department of Energy is who they had do this study. Now, in the study that the pamphlet or the document that I sent to you guys, the actual people that conducted the study is UT Battelle. It's a limited liability corporation, and it's part of the Department of Energy. So in other words, we have the government checking the government when they're the ones that are pushing this issue. This is, again, something for you to think about. It made me think why this is going on that way. Going further with that, the Department of Energy is closely linked with the Department of Defense. And now I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat. I surmise that there is well, actually, I don't even have to surmise. There is something called Program F. And Program F was part of the Manhattan Project. And they had an issue with all the stuff that's called HEX. It's hexafluoride. It's really, really bad stuff. Let's just say that. And how did it get, is that my time already? Can I have another minute, somebody? Is that allowed? Can somebody grant me a minute? Will somebody grant me a minute?
I'll give you 30 seconds to wrap up.
The program F was looking at a way to get rid of the fluoride. They needed something to get rid of the fluoride. And I am surmising that they are using the fertilizer industry as a front to put this in you and me and everybody else so they don't have to pay to store it in barrels somewhere. And I understand that that is a tinfoil hat issue, and that's why I claimed that. But there is legitimate concern behind it. And then the last thing that I want to say is in Oregon, they banned pesticides, and they banned these pesticides for the fact that they may be killing the bees. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, I wanted to bring that up to you guys because I think there's a correlation here. If the Harvard study is wrong, shouldn't we err on the side of caution anyway? If this product that's being put in the water supply is lowering the IQs of children, isn't it the right thing to stop? Maybe do some more research? Because don't the kids matter?
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to encourage you, if you want to testify in this, please get in the queue, or at least some of you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Jason Agri, and I'm here to also talk about our drinking water fluoridation program. Basically, I started this process almost 3 years ago, and October 2010, I gave some of the members on this body what I called a study, which is called Prayer for Pure Water for Big Wildlife, and it was to basically ask for a prayer for relief from fluoridation, and there was no action taken on this. And then I also asked in November 2010 for an infant warning notice, and no action was taken. And then I had a friend, he flew in on December 2010 from Christmas time. He was sitting on the plane, and he happened to sit next to the lady who got rid of fluoridation in Juneau. And her name is Marilyn Holmes. And he told him about his friend who was trying to get fluoridation out of the water in Anchorage. He says, why don't you give this man my number? And so I called up Marilyn Holmes, and I asked her, hi, Marilyn, I'm trying to get fluoride out of the Anchorage water and kind of asking you for some wisdom in this regard. And she says, you know, it took me 6 years to get it out of the Juneau water supply because I was basically stonewalled and no action was taken by the politicians as I was doing this, and it caused me lots of grief. And I know that I was doing what is right, but everybody was so against me. And then finally, it went to a vote, and they got it out in Juneau. It was like 2/3 of the population voted against fluoridation and got rid of it then. And then about a month later, after she got rid of it, she was talking to a professor of law, and he said, you know, Marilyn, you know that what they're actually doing is technically illegal because they don't have medical license. And she told me this, that she was so dumbfounded that there was no medical license from the politicians. And so I have a question for you here, and I would like to ask, who of you thinks that by being elected to office that you have medical license to treat people without their consent through the drinking water? And I would like to basically ask you to raise your hand if you think you do have a license to do this. And I know this Mr. Starr, he's walking away right now, but maybe he can participate in this question too. Because I looked into this, and I also give you your information regarding this, and I would just ask for some resolution in this regard and try to put things right, because I know that Paul Honeman, he said, well, we have executive power, we have an executive power, but I don't believe that you have executive power to practice medicine, and that because you get the majority of the votes at the election, that you have a medical license, and also the state law protects us from unlicensed and therefore unethical conduct. And I'd like to ask from the body here, I'll wrap it up here real quick.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
I would like to ask for people to consider putting forth some action in this regard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. How you folks doing? This is the third time now that I've made my presence known here. My name is Michael Todd. Up to this point, I've done what I can to be fairly reasonable with my comments, but I guess maybe I'll go beyond that point to this stage here. Jason asked a question. I didn't see any answers. Perhaps we'll carry on from there. Anybody here feel they have a medical license to require people to be forcibly medicated?
Sir, I suggest you give your testimony. You're not going to see a show of hands from the body.
Do you wish to interrupt me or let me speak?
I'm just telling you, you're not going to see a show of hands from the body.
I asked you a question to you directly. I'm not asking for your hand. Am I going to speak or are you going to interrupt me?
If you continue to ask people to vote, I'm going to interrupt you. If you're not, give your presentation.
Okay, and you're timing me now, so let's just stop. You've answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Previously, I've attempted to address issues with the cumulative nature of fluoride in the human body. It's able to be researched. People can see this information very easily if they take 10, 15 minutes of their personal time. With that said, I have been told from a member of your body, Mr. Honeman, that there is a level of acceptance that there is a problem with the fluoridation of municipal water supplies and the forcible medication of the human species of the Anchorage municipality through this process. The forcible medication, again, that's a terminology that refers to forcibly injecting, whatever means it may be, medication into humanity. You are a member of humanity. You are part of this. Every one of you. And you have the ability, through the power that has been instilled in you, through the people who rely on you as representatives, to make a change here. Whether the people that have voted for you are standing here now or not, they are voting for you to do the right thing for them. They may not know, and they don't know, because AWWU does not present to them on their bill that your children are being presented with poison when you feed them water, when you make formula for them and feed it in their bottle. They're not being presented this information because you have not accepted, through Jason Egger's presentations previously requesting this.
Thank you.
You make that available to these people that have voted you in positions that you're sitting in right now to make these decisions.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You understand where I'm coming from? It's not a joke.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sherry Mills. I've kind of made a little thing for myself because there's actually a lot that I have to say, but I know I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to try and focus as best as I can on one thing. I really don't give my consent to be medicated through fluoridation by all of you. I really ask you to hear us all. I would appreciate that very much. 2 years ago, I was in this assembly room on this same issue, and 8 of you were voted in again. And at that time, much information was given to at least 8 of you to review. And here I am back again because nothing has been done about something that I consider to be quite serious. And I hope you begin to understand that as well. You are forcing the ingestion of rat poison, which is what fluoride is, which there recently has been something where those boxes of Decon have been eliminated and another poison put in its place. But that's what's being put into our water. And we are perhaps close to 300,000 people in this town that have very varied susceptibilities from birth to old age in regard to fluoride. And I'm one of them. Around the world, most countries and their governmental agencies and the medical associations have given us their recommendations and their warnings on the toxicity of fluoride on the mind and the body. Most countries have voted to be fluoride-free, and there are many towns across America, including 3 of our own here in Alaska, that have decided for the better of this issue. And I recommend that this council seriously take heed of all of that information and to be deeply concerned about this potential town's future's liabilities on this issue, because there's an awful lot of information out there. Today's self-serving dental industries, which is usually the one that are promoting the fluoride, is part of this cover-up that goes back to the 1940s and the Manhattan Project and the needs of disposing of industrial toxins, at that time caused by DuPont, which was a chemical company. Today, this is a $10 billion industry that is being promoted to sell this fluoride to us. Apparently, to me, this is a tragedy for all of us, for all of our health. Public health has known by its own research since then that this industrial waste was causing dental fluorosis, yet they endorsed it anyway. A major gain against fluoridation occurred when the FDA started labeling our toothpaste without warning. To keep the reach of our children under 6 years of age, if more than a pea-sized dab was used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, go get medical help or contact your poison control center anyway. Don't swallow it, and we're drinking it, which was never meant to be to begin with. Paul Conant, a PhD, has written a book called...
Ma'am, I'm going to need you to conclude.
Okay. What I hope is that you take a look at this. I'm disappointed that I'm back here 2 years later. I was going to talk about the bone issue that we are addressing as we age, and I hope you begin to look at some of that literature for yourselves. Thank you.
Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. So, you know, this is Melissa. She's nonverbal. She's 23 years old. She does not give her consent to the city to medicate her without her permission. I'd also like to say I see plenty bottled water. I don't see anybody drinking tap water on this board.
We need your name for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Ridenauer.
Okay, thank you.
Just keep that in mind. Is there a reason you're not drinking tap water? I don't give it to my children. I don't want their IQ points lowered. I gave them well water. Keegan's a genius. He tests at genius level. He skipped kindergarten. He's going to 7th grade, does 9th grade level work. I'd like to think it's because I give him a healthy, non-GMO diet, do plenty of homework with him myself, parent-child time, and not poison him. I don't give him unnecessary medications. I don't give my consent to the city to medicate me. The EPA lists fluoride as a medication.
I'm Emily, and I'm 13 years old. I don't give the city permission to medicate me. My name is Keegan, and I'm 11 years old, and I do not give the city permission to medicate me.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Greg Holstein. I'm almost a 30-year Alaskan resident, and I'm concerned about the state and Anchorage, the water supply. I do not consent to the medicating of our water supply, and I'm almost positive if the residents of the city and state research the effects of fluoride, they would be just as concerned as well. I feel very fortunate to live in a country where I can openly speak to you people, to our elected officials, with the hope they will listen to its people. I am here today to urge our elected officials to get the fluoride out of our water supply. This issue needs to be addressed immediately. We need to quit postponing the issue, and get it on the agenda and vote to eliminate it. I'm curious as to why. I've spent some time thinking about why we are medicating the public with this toxic substance, and I can only come up with two logical explanations. Our elected assembly has not done their research on the subject matter, or you guys are persuaded by some political or business interests that are keeping you from making a right decision. Because if you have done your research, you would see fluoride has no business in our water. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm John Pope, an Anchorage resident, and I'm here to speak against fluoridation in the city water. It's something that our tax dollars are being spent on to add it to our water. There's a growing body of research that is showing that it does have harmful effects. And my position is let's put it back into the hands of the individual families. There's enough fluoridated products out there that if they still want this in their life, it is an easy thing to keep and to have in there, and there's no longer a reason, like there would have been back in the 40s, for putting this into the water supply, and simply let these families have the choices themselves to make, instead of having to remove it from their water in any way they can. If somebody wants to add it to theirs or to their products that they're using, let them choose that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Proctor. I've been a resident of Alaska for about 2.5 years. I do live in Chugiak, where we have well water. We are not forced to drink fluoridated water that is in the city. I can share an experience here. I work in the trades. I work very hard, and I sweat a lot. I have to replenish my body with water constantly. One of the reasons I moved up to this area was for the cool weather, because of the nature of my, the way my body functions, and I am overheated constantly. Not too long ago, I had a job that I was doing in Anchorage, and I ran out of my own water supply. I went ahead, knowing there was fluoride in the water, and took the risk. I drank probably anywhere from half a gallon to a full gallon of that fluoridated water in one day. The results were the next day I felt poisoned. It is rat poison. If you do your research about rat poison, the #1 ingredient in all rat poisons is sodium fluoride. I do not understand why it's in any water supply other than for big business gain. The testimony of these young people that stood before you and said they do not want their own water supply tainted with this rat poison should speak volumes. There is no valuable reason for it to be in our water supply, and I do not consent to being poisoned by it either. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Gretchen O'Donnell. I'm a resident of Anchorage. I was born here and I'm still growing up in Anchorage. Initially, I was really excited to speak tonight, but I almost got a little nervous just seeing the response that other people got. It's almost a little bit offensive because I feel like, for me personally, I really do like being involved in my government. And I first got involved in this like earlier this year at the beginning of this past legislative session, and so I definitely think it's important for my elected representatives to listen to the people who come up here and put in the time and the effort and issues that they care about. And what I really want to see, I want to see that type of effort and that time reciprocated by my government, because thus far it almost seems a little bit apathetic, if I could say that. But when we're looking specifically at the issue of fluoridation, I'm not necessarily an expert on the effects of fluoride, but I want to point out that there has been a lot of like recent information that's been put out for the public to see, and even if there's like the slightest suggestion that fluoride can lower the IQ of children, or that it has all these negative consequences, I feel like we should be erring on the side of caution, because, and so, I think we shouldn't be fluoridating our water right now. We should really be erring on the side of caution if there is any sort of concern about fluoride, because as it stands right now, it's definitely of a questionable nature, and I personally am not comfortable with drinking fluoridated water. And sure, there are other ways for me to go about that, but it's very inconvenient, and I don't think that's the way that government is supposed to function. It's like the people are supposed to be the government, so I'm a little bit confused about why we haven't seen any movement on this issue. I want to ask my assembly members to put the topic of fluoridation in Anchorage's water in our future agenda, and I suppose that's all.
Mr. Harlan?
Ma'am, I'm sorry I didn't get your name again.
Gretchen O'Donnell.
Gretchen. Well, first of all, thank you for coming forth and speaking. I'm hope not to get offended about coming and speaking before their legislative elected representatives. So you did quite well, and I just wanted to share for the persons in attendance who are concerned about this topic. We do take it serious. We're having some legal issues reviewed, and we do have it scheduled when we get the review complete from the municipal attorneys who's now left. But they have assured myself, the chair, and a couple of other members who've made the request for legal reviews. And while I'm on the topic, I want to just real briefly, because people wanted to quote me when they were up earlier speaking. So I'm quite sure that I said that the Assembly has legislative powers, not executive. And secondly, I'm not sure the exact quote, but I do recall having a conversation with the gentleman who spoke, saying that I acknowledge that there are some concerns from many members of this community about fluoride in the drinking water, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding whether it should or we shouldn't. So I think it's a very important topic. I will note in my review, just one snippet of it, if I might share with the body and for you, that the Juneau City Council voted to continue fluoridation. It was the vote of the will of the people, not necessarily the council. So there are several ways to accomplish a goal, and speaking to your leaders who simply we legislate, and so we give the authority to the water and wastewater utility, and have since the early 60s, late 50s, to fluoridate our water. And it's been amended, it's been changed due to some recommendations. But this is not the first time that this has been before this body, and it's not the first time it's been before a legislative body in the municipality. So So far, it's been continued. I'm not sure where we'll go in the future, but we're looking for some legal review. So it's not an issue that we're just ignoring or discarding as not important. We're making sure we do due diligence to everyone. So I wanted to make sure I shared that equally to my colleagues on the body, but also the people who seem very interested in this topic. So, but thank you for coming down.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate your response.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I was going to share on member comments.
Yeah.
I was interesting the mayor's comments about the Kiplinger report, and I find it interesting. If you look it up, it's really interesting. It talks about Anchorage having many things to brag about, and one being low property taxes, even though it's a high cost of living area. So I think it's a great statement on our city, and it continues. I know it's an issue that's debatable as well. So with that, I'll move to adjourn.
Good. We stand adjourned.